Welcome back to Stamps Old World UK, the channel where history, art, and value meet in the small but powerful world of postage stamps. Today's video is dedicated to one of the most famous and recognizable classic stamps in the world, the United States 2-cent red stamp featuring George Washington. This stamp may look simple at first glance, but behind this small piece of paper is a deep story of American history, postal development, and a market that is still active and interesting in today's stamp collecting world. The 2-cent red George Washington stamp was issued by the United States in the early 20th century, most famously in 1903 and later variations in the Washington Franklin series. At that time, 2 cents was the standard rate for first-class domestic mail, which means this stamp was used in very large quantities. Millions upon millions were printed, carried on letters, postcards, and official documents across the United States. Because of this heavy usage, many examples survive today, but their condition and specific details make a huge difference in market value. From a design point of view, this stamp is a classic engraved portrait. George Washington, the first president of the United States, is shown in profile based on earlier famous paintings and engravings. The rich red color, often described as carmine or rose depending on the printing, gives the stamp a strong visual identity. The words U.S. postage and 2 cents clearly mark its purpose, and the ornamental frame reflects the engraving style of its era. This combination of history, national symbolism, and fine printing is one reason collectors still love this stamp today. Now let us talk about market value in today's U.S. dollar terms. This is the most important part for many collectors, especially beginners who find stamps like this in old albums, family collections, or inherited boxes. A very common used example of the 2-cent Washington stamp with heavy cancellation marks, average centering, and visible wear typically sells today for around $1 to $3 US. These are the stamps most often found in bulk collections and are valued more for study and enjoyment than for investment. A clean used example with a light, readable postmark, good centering, and no tears or creases can reach a market value of around $5 to $10 US. Collectors appreciate stamps like these because they represent honest postal history while still having good visual appeal. Centering is especially important because many early U.S. stamps were poorly centered when printed, so well-centered copies are always more desirable. When we move to mint stamps, the value starts to increase more noticeably. A mint stamp without gum, meaning the original adhesive on the back is missing, may sell today for roughly $10 to $20 US if the front appearance is fresh and well-centered. A mint stamp with original gum, especially if the gum is undisturbed and not heavily hinged, can range from $25 to $50 US or more. The exact price depends heavily on centering, color freshness, and overall condition. There are also special cases that collectors should be aware of. Some 2-cent Washington stamps exist with printing varieties, such as different shades, plate flaws, or minor errors. While most of these are subtle and require expert identification, certain recognized varieties can sell for significantly higher prices, sometimes reaching several hundred US. However, it is very important to be cautious because many color differences are simply natural aging or ink variation and not true catalog-listed varieties. Condition plays a critical role in today's stamp market. Thins, creases, short perforations, stains, or repairs can dramatically reduce value, even if the stamp looks acceptable at first glance. On the other hand, a stamp with sharp perforations, strong color, and balanced margins can attract serious collectors and achieve higher prices at auctions or through reputable dealers. This is why professional grading and certification has become more common for better quality examples. Another important factor affecting today's market value is demand. The 2-cent Washington stamp is a classic, but it's also widely available. This means prices remain relatively stable and affordable, making it an excellent entry point for new collectors. Experienced collectors often seek the very best examples or specific plate numbers, postal usages, or covers, which keeps a healthy niche market alive for this stamp. In today's digital age, the stamp market is influenced by online platforms, auctions, and global interest. Prices can vary slightly depending on whether a stamp is sold through a traditional dealer, an online auction site, or a specialized philatelic auction house. However, the general value ranges I have shared remain a reliable guide for understanding what this stamp is worth today in US dollars. To summarize, the US 2-cent red George Washington stamp is not just a piece of old paper. It's a symbol of American postal history, classic engraving art, and a living collectible that still has meaning and value today. Common used examples may be worth only a few dollars, but well-preserved mint copies and special varieties can reach much higher values. Its real worth, however, lies in the history it carries and the enjoyment it brings to collectors around the world. Next up, the 2 cents George Washington stamp, but this time we're looking more closely at another very popular issue that many collectors recognize instantly. This stamp is part of the famous Washington Franklin era and represents one of the most widely used and collected designs in American philately. This 2 cents red George Washington stamp was issued during a period when the United States postal system was expanding rapidly. The 2-cent rate paid for standard first-class mail, which meant this stamp was used every single day by businesses, families, and government offices. As a result, enormous quantities were printed, and these stamps traveled across cities, towns, and rural areas, carrying personal letters, official documents, and postcards. Each surviving stamp today is a small witness to that everyday history. The design of this stamp is both elegant and powerful. George Washington is shown in a finely engraved oval portrait, facing left, surrounded by a detailed ornamental frame. The words US postage appear at the top, while 2 cents is clearly printed at the bottom. The deep red color, sometimes described as carmine red, gives the stamp a strong and classic appearance. This design was not meant to be flashy, but dignified and trustworthy, reflecting the image of Washington as the foundation of the nation. When collectors look at this stamp today, one of the first things they examine is condition. Because these stamps were heavily used, finding examples in excellent condition can be surprisingly difficult. Many surviving copies show heavy cancellations, faded color, worn perforations, or small defects. This is why condition plays such a major role in determining market value in today's US dollar market. A very common used example of this stamp, with a dark or messy postmark and average centering, usually sells today for around $1 to $2 US. These stamps are extremely common and are often found in bulk mixtures, old albums, or beginner collections. While they may not be expensive, they are still important for learning and appreciating classic US stamp issues. If the stamp is used but has a lighter, clearer postmark, good centering, and no visible damage, the market value increases. Such examples often sell in the range of $5 to $15 US, depending on overall appearance. Collectors value these stamps because they combine real postal history with attractive presentation. Mint examples are where values start to become more interesting. A mint stamp without original gum may be valued today at around $10 to $20 US. A mint stamp with original gum, especially if it is lightly hinged or never hinged, can reach values between $30 and $60 US, or even higher. Perfect centering, fresh color, and clean gum are key factors that can push prices upward. There are also different printings, perforation types, and subtle varieties within this 2-cent George Washington issue. Some stamps were printed using different plates or papers, and others show small plate flaws or engraving differences. While most of these varieties are modestly priced, certain recognized and certified varieties can sell for much higher amounts, sometimes reaching several hundred US. Expert identification is essential in these cases, as many stamps look similar to the untrained eye. In today's stamp market, demand for classic US issues like this remains steady. While it is not a rare stamp, it is an iconic one. Collectors around the world continue to seek high-quality examples, especially those with excellent centering or interesting postal markings. Online auctions, stamp shows, and specialized dealers all contribute to a global marketplace where prices are relatively stable and transparent. This stamp is also an excellent example of why stamp collecting is not only about money. Even a stamp worth just a few dollars can hold great historical and educational value. It represents a time when written letters were the main form of communication and when postage stamps played a vital role in connecting people across vast distances. In conclusion, the U.S. 2-cent George Washington stamp remains a cornerstone of classic American philately. In today's market, common used examples are affordable, while high-quality mint copies and special varieties can command strong prices in U.S. dollars. Whether you are a beginner or an experienced collector, this stamp deserves a place of respect in any collection. Next up, the 2-cent George Washington stamp from the famous Washington Franklin series, dated around 1932. This stamp is instantly recognizable to collectors around the world and represents an important moment in American postal and commemorative history. This particular 2-cent Washington stamp was issued to honor the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. Unlike earlier regular issue stamps, this one carries a stronger commemorative identity while still being intended for everyday postal use. The 2-cent rate was still the standard for first-class domestic mail at the time, which meant this stamp was printed in very large quantities and used extensively across the United States. Millions of letters carried this stamp, making it a true working stamp of its era. The design of this stamp is bold and dignified. George Washington is shown facing forward based on the famous Houdon bust, giving the portrait a strong and serious presence. The words United States Postage appear clearly at the top, while 2 cents and Washington are printed at the bottom. The red color, often described as carmine or rose red, is vibrant and eye-catching, and the engraved lines show the high quality of American stamp production during the early 20th century. From a collector's perspective, this stamp is extremely popular because it combines historical importance, attractive design, and accessibility. Many collectors own at least one example, but the real interest lies in condition, centering, and usage. Because these stamps were widely used, truly fine examples are harder to find than many people expect. Let us now focus on market value in today's US dollar terms. A very common used example of this 2 cents Washington stamp, especially one with a heavy or messy cancellation and average centering, typically sells for around $1 to $2 US. These stamps are extremely common and are often found in large quantities in old collections, dealer stock books, and mixed lots. A better quality used example with a lighter postmark, strong red color, and well-balanced centering can reach a market value of around $5 to $10 US. Collectors are willing to pay more for stamps that look clean and visually appealing, even if they are used. Clear town or date cancellations can also add interest, especially for collectors who focus on postal history. Mint examples are more desirable and naturally command higher prices. A mint stamp without original gum usually sells today for around $10 to $15 US, depending on overall appearance. A mint stamp with original gum, especially if it is lightly hinged or never hinged, can range from $25 to $50 US. Exceptionally well-centered examples with fresh color and clean gum may sell for even higher prices, particularly if they are professionally graded or certified. There are also minor varieties associated with this issue, including shade differences and printing characteristics. While most of these do not carry major premiums, certain recognized varieties or plate-related features can attract specialist collectors. As always, expert verification is important because many apparent differences are simply the result of aging, storage conditions, or natural ink variation. In today's stamp market, this 2-cent George Washington stamp remains stable and consistently collectible. It is not rare, but demand remains strong because of its iconic status and historical significance. Online marketplaces, stamp shows, and traditional dealers continue to trade this stamp regularly, and prices have remained relatively steady over time. This stamp also serves as an excellent reminder that stamp collecting is not only about high prices or rare errors. Even a stamp worth just a few dollars can represent a major historical event, a national symbol, and a piece of everyday life from nearly a century ago. For many collectors, the enjoyment of owning and studying such stamps is far more valuable than their monetary worth. In conclusion, the United States 2-cent George Washington stamp from 1932 is a cornerstone of classic American philately. In today's US dollar market, common used examples are affordable, while well-preserved mint copies can achieve respectable prices. Its true value lies in its history, its design, and its lasting appeal to collectors around the world. Thank you for watching Stamps Old World UK. If you enjoy long, detailed stamp discussions and honest insights into today's stamp market, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with fellow collectors. Your support helps keep the world of classic stamps alive and appreciated. Until next time, happy collecting and see you in the next video.